Yo guys, Mike from Sim Racing 604, and welcome to Automobilista 2, and welcome on board for the first time to the Nissan GT-R GT3. This is part of the huge content drop that came to AMS2 over the holidays. Nissan was a new ad, and they added this, and I believe the GT1 R390. And I really like this GT-R GT3. It needs a bit of tuning. I don't love the default setup, but overall it's a very nice car, and I haven't always loved the GT3 class in AMS2, but I actually really like this car. It's been a fun one. So what I'm going to do to test it out is drive 2 laps here at the Nürburgring Nordschleife. 2 laps with a setting sun, because of course you can't drive in AMS2 without taking advantage of their fantastic weather system and time of day system. So it's going to get a little bit more cloudy, it's going to get a lot more dark by the end of this race, and we'll see how things play out. I was starting mid-pack of 24, I want to say. And a field of GT3 cars, including the 720S and Porsche that you see in front of you. So why do I like this GT-R GT3? Well, it's, other than that, and I'm going to talk about that in a second, yeah, it just feels really nice. It delivers exactly what I want in a GT3 car. To me, GT3 should be overall tame in terms of handling. Yes, it should have a limit, of course, but should be overall a quite responsive car and fairly neutral handling by comparison to, say, a Formula 1 car or something like that. And this one delivers that, but also impressive performance. And this thing, whoops, will hit 280 kilometers an hour on the Dottinger Straight. Is that what it's called? Maybe. The long straightaway at Nordschleife will probably hit 280 plus kilometers an hour, depending on slipstream, blah, blah, blah. So this thing is impressively fast, but at the same time, as I say, fairly neutral handling overall. Whoop, little off-track excursion there for the AMG GT3. Tight quarters here through the first section of the Nordschleife leg of this journey. And I had the chance actually to speak to a real GT3 driver in 2022, and I just straight up asked, what is the best GT3 experience in sim racing? And he said ACC, and I'm not surprised about that. And so that is sort of the benchmark, in my opinion, and this person's opinion, for what a GT3 car should feel like in sim racing. And I don't think AMS2 is there yet. I don't think it competes with ACC, quite frankly. But as I say, this GT-R GT3 delivers nicely on what it set out to be. I don't think it's my favorite class in AMS2. I would put GT1s above this, for certain. And perhaps another class or two, Formula V10 most likely. This is going to be ugly. Whew. Not sure how I survived that. At least you guys are getting good racing action. Not always the case at Nordschleife. But we are wheel to wheel with the 720S and just about ran each other off the road. And he is still beside me. I can just see his tail in my rearview mirror. Please back off, please back off. Good. Alright, so we made it through safely. And now we chase Bumblebee. Whew. So this next section here tends to put a gap between myself and the AI, so I'm going to drop back a bit here off Bumblebee, despite my best efforts. Hopefully the 720 behind me doesn't close up too much. And what I would recommend, at least for my personal preference of how a car should drive, is to soften the anti-roll bar on this GT-R GT3 from default. I would recommend putting, turning down the front anti-roll bar quite a bit, and then the rear a little bit at least. But of course you can do that to taste. Come on, come on. There we go, got a good launch. So we're climbing the ranks here, looking to be, I believe we're in 8th position now. That's not bad after starting, I think, 12th. Apparently I'm still not done with this fight, or am I? Am I? Yes. Porsche's still right behind me. You can't see it on your center screen, but if you look in the camera overlay, you should be able to see that car is dropping back. So now we have a huge gap to the car in front. So now I gotta fill dead air for the next minute or so while I try and reel them in. Unless I totally mess up a corner and get overtaken. Woo! That is, I meant to talk about this earlier, that is my main problem with this car. Traction control right now is at its highest setting, and I can still spin those rear wheels. I don't believe, and I am certainly no GT3 driver, but I don't believe that should be the case. I think on maximum traction control, this thing should feel sluggish, but it doesn't. It feels very lively, and as I say, you mash the gas, and you can still spin the rear wheels. That to me just doesn't feel right. So unless I'm missing something, again, I fully admit I have zero experience driving a GT3 car, so I can't say whether it is right or wrong, but it just feels wrong by comparison to every other sim, so thus unnatural in the world of sim racing. And one of my favorite sections here in all of racing, those previous 10-ish corners, such an amazing experience to get right. I so seldom do get it right, but when you do, it just feels so great. And there's actually an interesting section here. Not this, but just as we enter the Beloff S complex, right here, this left-hander here gives me a feeling of weightlessness with my motion sim, and I shouldn't have it technically, because this is a 2DOF system. I've got the Next Level Racing Motion Plus and the Motion Platform Seat Mover, which should result in 2DOF. I should have pitch and roll, but not heave, and for some reason I get a heave effect through that section, but only in AMS2, so something funky, something cool that Reza does with the suspension in that exact instant gives me a heave effect in my motion sim, and I love it. It's such an amazing feeling, but again, it shouldn't exist. If I'm reading the literature right on my Next Level Racing motion system, I should not have a heave effect, but somehow I do. Sun to my right, looking beautiful. And this GT-R GT3 tearing down this long straight, 274 kilometers an hour was the highest I saw. Under the Bilstein Bridge here. 280. So yeah, this thing is fast. Fastest I have seen at this particular track layout is an 8:13. I think that's the world record, which I believe is 4 seconds slow from the world record, from the real world record, right? That was the Porsche GT3 at 8:09. So interestingly, even though this car feels fast, it feels a bit OP. It is actually not on aggregate, apparently. It's 4 seconds slower than the real world best, so interesting bit of data there. Unless I've got those numbers totally wrong, which is entirely possible on this channel. Alright, so I'm closing in on a fellow GT-R GT3, so it'll be nice to get a look at the outside of this pretty machine. I think it's gorgeous. I've loved the GT-R since it was released, and I still think the looks hold up. I think it's a big, boxy machine. It doesn't have, you know, the sort of sleek design of, let's say, Italian hypercars, but yeah, I think the boxy design I don't know, it just feels like the Italian, don't get me wrong, I think Italian supercars are gorgeous, but at the same time, it seems that year after year they get a little bit more sleek looking. Whoa, no contact when that was close. And it makes the old one look not as good, but because Nissan hasn't significantly revised the GT-R since, what, 2010, 2009, whatever year it came out, I think the looks hold up. When I see one on the road, I still turn to watch. I think it's looking great. It seems to be aging well. But that is subjective. What is not subjective is that I butchered that corner. That was objectively bad. But we are closing in on our foes here at the Nordschleife. Getting ever so close. All we need is a little mistake, which the AI often does, through the next right-hander. Let's see. Yep, sure enough. So it's not enough for me to get by, but enough at least to pull close as the sun is in its waning moments before it dips below the horizon. We get darkness. We'll have to go headlights on very soon. Hopefully I mapped a button. Can't remember if I did or not. This could be a very interesting lap if I didn't. Ooh, look at that. Look at that. Come on, folks. Whether you love or hate AMS2, you gotta admit that was pretty darn gorgeous. And my goal here is to get 5th, so I gotta gain 2 positions by the end of this lap. We'll see what happens. All I gotta do is try and stay close coming into the last long straightaway, and then I tend to have an advantage over the AI here. Can't remember what I set the AI to, but I believe the way it sort of compensates for having it anything below 100 is to give you an advantage in the straightaways. So as long as I can stay close throughout the lap, I should be able to get a slipstream and manage that overtake. But we'll see what happens. Oh, boy, that's a rough one with the motion turned on. And a wicked, evil-looking 720S staring me down. Don't those tail lights look like eyes looking backwards? Evil eyes looking backwards. Whew. Terrific looking car. I've seen a 720S in person once, and I think it was the most gorgeous vehicle I've ever seen. There's a lot of hypercars, supercars that I have not seen in person, but the 720S I think was the single most gorgeous. I saw it, it was orange, and it was just cruising around a street I happened to be walking down. And what I remember from it, this was a few years ago now, but what I remember from it is that it looked like it was all of about 24 inches high, like just tiny, tiny little car, and as wide as a bus. It was quite an impressively dimensioned machine, and just super intimidating. And as I say, in the orange color it was just gorgeous, absolutely beautiful. And I would say that's the single most beautiful car I've ever seen. All right, let's try these headlights. Yes, we have headlights. Great news. It's getting dark here at Nords. It's funny with sim racing. I mean, we get to experience so much, and it's, you know, a battle for realism. And for the most part, so many developers, so many mod creators do such a great job of immersing us in the experience of driving, but there's some things you just can't capture from the comfort of your home. And I think the beauty of an exotic car is one of those things. No matter how good, you know, Forza Horizon looks, no matter how good Assetto Corsa looks, whatever sim or game you happen to be driving, I haven't been wowed to the same degree as, you know, seeing the car in person. There's just intangibles. There's something about the way the light hits a really nice exotic car that you just can't capture the same in a game. And I would say the same about sound. The nicest sounding games, let's say Race Room, let's say ACC, don't sound as good as a as a race in real life. And you know, I've had many opportunities to prove that to myself, including going to the F1 race in Montreal last year. I mean, you're standing trackside and hearing those F1 cars go by. It sounds nothing like the best sound mod in existence. Like, it's just another level. It just booms and echoes off everything. It just fills your ears, and you know, it drowns out crowd noises, and that level of just, I don't know, just, it's not just amplitude though. There's something about the way it echoes. There's something about the way it hits your ears that I just haven't found recreated. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love the sound of those games I just mentioned, and there's many Assetto Corsa mods that I would put on that level as well, but there's just something about the way a real-life car sounds that hasn't been captured. I would think that would potentially be one of the areas where they could get very close to realism. For example, like, you're never going to get all the G-forces, even with the best motion sim in the world. You're never going to fully recreate the G-forces you would get from driving a race car. Or, you know, I was talking about visuals earlier. Yeah, it has to go through a video card. It has to go, you know, ultimately to a screen that has limited capabilities, and so it's never going to be as good as the naked eye, let's face it. But yeah, sound, I would think you could get pretty close, and they do get very close, but there's those little intangibles, those little things that you wouldn't necessarily factor into the sound of a racing game. And for all I know, it might sound terrible in a racing game. Maybe it's one of those things that has to be limited, but yeah, I would say that hasn't fully been captured. But anyway, I think I just burned a full lap of the Nord's Endurance layout, yammering on about realism. So let's leave Mr. Pirelli Club Sport in the dirt, in the dust, in my dust. Boy, did I mess that up. Alright, he is still beside me. I do not have an advantage here yet. I'm getting dangerously low on fuel, but I should be fine. 4 liters left. I think I'll come in somewhere around 8 minutes 25 seconds for this lap, which again, I believe the world record is 8:13, so it'd be interesting to see what I could do with lower fuel, with no other traffic out there, and better conditions. Whoa! Oh no, never mind. I'm gonna be exactly what the potential said, 8:35. Alright. Thank you for watching. Let me know your thoughts on this GT-R GT3 or anything else AMS2 related in the comments below. Thanks again for watching.